Alright, y'all, good afternoon. I got out of work a little early today because I'm injured. So I'm going to bring you I got a little bit of daylight, so I might as well bring a show. You know, why not? What the hell? Alright, so today's going to be show 4 on the Celtz. Today's going to be what I call Conquestz. Alright, we're going to first talk about the Celtic Conquest, and then we're going to finally get into the Celts being conquested by the Romans. Alright, so alright, we're going to first start off, and I got this story down pretty much on lock. It's 390 BC, okay? Now, Rome is not yet the powerhouse that you know of that it becomes later. It's still kind of in its infancy. In fact, it was only 120 years earlier that they threw off the yoke of the Etruscan kings. We talked about I talked about early Roman kings the other day on one of my shows. So now we're going, 120 years after that, Rome had been a republic for 120 years. So at 390 BC, they're starting to branch out. Republics do that. They sack their neighbors, they steal all their neighbors' shit, and then call their territory their own. And I mean, that's what America did to the Indians. It's just the way republics work. That's why I always say republics are bad. They're necessary to get you out of monarchy and get you out of petty kingdomness. If you have a bunch of shitty little kingdoms fighting with each other and you want to become a nation, republics are kind of good, but then they only get you so far until you eat yourself. Well, anyway, Rome was a republic in 390 BC by now for 120 years. And one of their provinces they called Cisalpine Gaul. There was two Gauls. There was Transalpine Gaul and it was Cisalpine Gaul. And what that means is Gaul on this side of the Alps and Gaul on that side of the Alps. And the Gaul on this side of the Alps was a lot more dangerous to the Romans because there was no mountain separating them from these dangerous, crazy, wild warriors called the Celts. They scared the shit out of the Romans. The way they fought, the way they ate, the way they dressed. Everything everything a Roman wasn't supposed to be about the Celts. So the Celts started moving in northern Italy. In fact, the cities of Turin and Milan are both originally Celtic cities. Okay, they were started by the Celts that moved into that area, and they spoke a dialect of Celtic that's long since been dead. It's been dead since like Caesar's time, but I forget what it's called. It begins with a P. But anyway. Somehow there was a border dispute, okay? And the Celts were actually going by Roman law. They were like disputing with land with this, it was a city called Clusium, or a town called Clusium, near where Rome meets the border of like the Roman Empire ended and where the Celts began. And it was over farmland. And a quarrel broke out with kind of like the head, not the mayor, but like kind of like the head honcho in charge, the guy who answered back to the Roman Senate for Clusium. He was like, no, you can't have it. We're welching on this. You're not going to get the land, and there's no way around it. We're not doing it. No. So a fight broke out, and it turned into a fist fight where the Celts beat the shit out of the Romans. And one of the Romans got mad, so he pulled out his sword and stabbed one of the Celts to death. And the Celts still went by the law, and they sent word to the Roman Senate that, like, look, how are we going to do this? One of your guys killed our guys, and now we want blood money. And the Roman Senate wrote back, kind of tough luck. So the Celts attacked, okay? And the leader of the Celts, of this band of Celts, was named Brennus, B-R-E-N-N-U-S. Perfect name for a boy. If any of you are looking for a Celtic name for a boy, I went with it. It was my number 4 choice behind Vercingetorix, Llewellyn, and Cuchulainn, and they all got shot down. Fortunately, we went with Taliesin. But Brennus was the leader of these Celts. And first, the Romans did not have the superior fighting tactics that they would have later on. At this point, they only fought in phalanxes. They didn't have their legions like they did later, which were much more deadly and effective. So they're fighting in a phalanx, and they did have a cavalry unit. Somehow, this Brennus outflanked the cavalry on top of a hill, and they had chariots. The Celts had chariots. They didn't have cavalry. They didn't ride on horseback yet, but they did have chariots, and somehow the chariots outmaneuvered and outflanked the horses on this hill, and they sent them in disarray. So then, by the time, and the Celts completely outnumbered the Romans, like 4-1. So by the time his phalanx stood up to them, they got swamped, and the Celts had no formation. It was just dudes wilding, screaming, swinging big, huge, humongous swords like the Romans had never seen before, and they get their ass kicked. You know, in the plains a couple miles outside of Rome. Well, the Celts advance outside of the city of what is Rome at that point. And while it's not the city of Rome where there's 1 million people like there was in 0 AD, there still was quite a few people there. They all evacuated. They knew the Celts were coming. The only people left in the city were old men and senators, okay? So the Celts are like going over the city gates, the city walls. They get to the main hill that where all the money and all the capital is called the Capitoline Hill, and that's where a bunch of senators are sitting. And there's these sacred geese outside the temple of Juno on that hill, and there was no way for the Celts to get up except climb this huge wall on the side of this temple where these geese were. And here they are fighting against these geese, standing on each other's back, climbing up this wall. Finally, they get up to the top, and they're in this courtyard, and they're like, there's these Celts, they're in blue war paint, they got their hair sticking up, kind of like mine is right now. They look all crazy, they're sacking the city, okay? And they're like, it's quiet as a mouse, and they're like walking around, they have their swords out, and there's these little old men sitting in chairs, and they're like, not a word is spoken. These Celts walk up to them and think these old men are statues, right? And then they go up to one of the old men and pull their beards. And then the old man hits the Celt in the head with his cane. And then all hell breaks loose, and then the Celts murder all these old men. They're all senators. And pretty much they made short order of the city of Rome. Now, the Celts were not out to occupy Rome. They just wanted their comeuppance and some wine and some loot. Again, sounds fair to me. It all sounds reasonable to me. So the ransom for the city was 100 pounds of gold. And, 100 tons of gold or 100 pounds, I think it's 100 tons of gold. I forget, and that's a big difference. I got to get my shit straight. See, that's why I don't like giving shows without doing my research. But anyway, there was a shitload of gold that the Romans had to pay. They basically had to bankrupt the city to get rid of the Celts. And while they're weighing it out, this leader Brennus is like sitting there watching, and he's counting, and he's being a dick the whole time. He's like, no, that's not enough. You didn't put enough on. No, that doesn't weigh right. Go back and do it again. And in the end, like, he kept pushing and pushing, and he got more gold than he was supposed to. And the Romans are like, hey, you cheated. And the whole time they're having to speak in Celtic because the Celts don't really know Latin. Okay, so they have like interpreters speaking in Celtic and Latin. And then I guess somehow Brennus learned these words, but he throws his sword on top of all the weights, and the measures and the weights all fall down, and all the gold falls on the floor, and he says "Ve vincetis" in Latin to them, and it means in Latin that means to the brave belong all things. Please make sure that goes on my tombstone. If I'm trying to get a tattoo, and I want my kids' names and Ve vincetis on my body somewhere. Anyway, that's the story of the first Brennus, okay, and he sacks Rome. Eventually, the Celts move back out, and slowly but surely over the next 3 centuries, they lose more and more ground. The Romans become better and better at military, and they start taking back their land. The other conquest that I want to talk about today, and this is the sack of the Oracle of Delphi. Okay, now in Greece, and I believe it's 267 BC, it's about 130 years later, another Celtic chieftain named Brennus, same name, different guy, is in Greece. And somehow they were in like the northern parts of Greece. It's like Thrace, then you have Macedonia, then there's like another region I forget, and then like you get to Greece proper. Like somehow or another the Celts were just like roaming around Greece. I don't know the whole story of why they were there. There was like they were in a battle, and then they couldn't get home, and there was just this big battalion of Celts that were just wandering around. Where's the next town? I got good wine. Let's go get them. You know what I mean? Like, there's a women over there. Let's go fucking sack that city. So eventually they come up with they're going through Greece, picking off city by city, and the Greeks are shitting their pants about this. And by now, the Greek Empire, Alexander was gone. Like, the Greeks are on the decline. The Rome is on the rise. Like, it was kind of that jump-off point where Greece started to suck and Rome started to be good. But Delphi is where the oracle is, okay? And there's a lot of money there. It's like a bank there. And the Celts knew this, so they sacked the Oracle of Delphi. And when they went in, I mean, there's virgins involved, because there's like, for that temple, there has to be like so many girls who are virgins working there and so forth. And they ended up sacking that as well and causing mayhem all over Greece. And they ended up, this very band of them ended up moving. They never went back into Europe. They moved eastward over to Turkey. They kept pillaging Greek cities, and eventually they settled in the middle of Turkey. And they called themselves Gauls or Gals or Gaels. To this day, we still call, you know, Ireland and Scottish people Gaelic. Gaelic, yeah, they speak Gaelic. That's the name of the Celtic language they speak. And Gaelic isn't too far from the word Celtic. It was the Greeks that first called them Keltoi, and that's where the word Celts come from. The Romans called them Gauls. They seem to call themselves Gaels. Well, anyway, they moved into the middle of Turkey, and that region was known as Galatia. And in the middle of Turkey for the next, I don't know, 300 to 500 years, you could find blonde-haired, blue-eyed, blue war-painted Celts, wearing rockin' plaid, rockin' gold, rockin' light. Celts wore lots of jewelry. If you know what a torque is like a choker that they wear around their neck. I want to get one. I never had one before. But anyway, look, I'm going to have to cut the story short today. Here comes my bus. That was Celtic Conquest. Tomorrow we're going to do Julius Caesar and the Conquest of Gaul, and pretty much the beginning of the end for the Romans. But today's show, I was winning. The Celts kicked ass. So have a good day. I'm getting on my filthy bus. Help me get a driver's license. Help me find a new place to live. Help me, help me, help me. My name is Richie Romance. Roll the closure, Romance. Peace.